Welcome to Restoring Education in America with Priscilla Rahn. She's a master educator and author, leading the conversation to restore the American mind through wisdom, virtue, and truth.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Restoring Education in America. I'm your host, Priscilla Rahn, and I am so thrilled that you've decided to tune in today. It's America's 250th birthday. Are you a parent that's looking for a great school? I believe in school choice, and one of the choices that I hope you'll consider is Excalibur Classical Academy. They're a new school that's opening in the Centennial area. Their mission and vision is restoring America's heritage by developing servant leaders who are keepers and defenders of the principles of freedom for which our founding fathers pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. And if you're looking for a great option, an alternative to our public schools, please go to their website, excaliburclassicalacademy.org. They're opening kindergarten through third grade this fall. And we just want you to take a look. They have a wonderful incentive for parents this fall, and that is 100% scholarships. Please consider this opportunity for your child. But again, parents have a right to choose where they want to send their children to school. And one of those amazing options is homeschooling. And here to talk about it is my friend, Miss Kashia Davis, who is the Outreach Director for Christian Homeschool Educators of Colorado. Welcome again.
Thanks. It's so fun to be back.
It's great to have you. We've seen each other a couple times since the last time I had you on the show, but there's something really amazing that is happening this week at the Capitol.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to have you on so we can really promote it. I know a lot of people know about it, but we want to do this last push to let people know about something great that's happening at the Capitol. Why don't you kick this off and talk about it?
Thank you. Well, we have been around since 1994, CHECK, as an organization, defending families' freedoms, helping them homeschool with confidence. It's our tagline. And a huge part of that is going to the Capitol and lobbying and testifying on any bill that relates to parental rights, religious freedoms, and of course, education. So when we are there, we have the girth of the families that we represent behind us. And that's what Day at the Capitol is all about, is bringing your family to the Capitol for a chance for the legislatures to see you, to get to visit with them, to see regular families, moms, dads, children. And we really try to make it super fun and engaging. So we have activities from 9 until 11. We obviously do some things with the Capitol. So we'll have an opening where the homeschoolers there are represented. In the House of Representatives, at least, they open the session with the Pledge of Allegiance. But then we also fill the Capitol with posters of homeschool success stories, really. And there's so many of them that we have to not bring all of them. I mean, we have some great testimonies. And then we have activity tables for the children to do, and parents, that are super educational. They're fun, and you're going to learn something. Plus, we have tours set up. And then at 11 o'clock, we're doing a rally on the steps. And this is where we really need families to show up in droves, like thousands is what we want, to be on the steps. It is, in my understanding, it's the largest gathering at the Capitol since they started that for families. So I love that you're going to see mom and dad and babies and probably strollers going through the security line to get into the Capitol. But it's really a fun event, and it matters because, again, it magnifies our voice when we're sitting there talking to representatives or the senators, and we're letting them know what we think about a bill. They're picturing these sweet families that we have the privilege of representing. So we thank you so much for promoting this with us, Priscilla. It really matters.
Yes, absolutely. So it is April 9th.
April 9th, yes.
April 9th, that's this Thursday. And we want all of the homeschool families to take a break from what you're doing, go down to the Capitol, have a civics day, talk to your legislators. You know, it's just bringing civics to color, right? It's bringing it to life.
Exactly.
So let's back up and talk about homeschooling, because you are specifically Christian homeschool educators. Colorado. it's just as vast.
Sure.
Homeschoolers as it is with public schools, charter schools, private schools. But let's talk specifically about Christian Home Educators of Colorado, and then we can branch out into the homeschool family in
Movement.
general. Yeah.
Sure. So Christian Home Educators of Colorado, check, what we like to call ourselves. We're a nonprofit support organization. And yes, we're faith-based, but we support any family that chooses to homeschool. What we're advocating for is parental rights, for their right to choose, for their right to be in control of what their children are being taught. So regardless of what your beliefs are, we're still going to support and lobby for your beliefs, for those religious rights, parental rights, religious freedoms. Those are our foundation, bedrock. So regardless of, and there is a growing demographic of families that I would say homeschool not because of religion. As a matter of fact, the number one reason that people choose to homeschool, 80% will tell us it's because of the environment of the public school system. So they're citing safety concerns, bullying, fear. I mean, school shootings are the norm now. So that's the number one reason. Then second behind that are morality issues. And those are the things that we fight constantly, where we're talking about mom and dad are the authority. Mom and dad are the ones who get to make these decisions. Regardless of what people believe, we want to support them. Yes, we are faith-based, but that doesn't exclude us from serving the entire homeschooling community because we're lobbying for the same rights.
That's really important to put a pin in, right? Is that parents are the first educators of their
Amen.
children. And we look at our founding documents, it doesn't talk about public education or government education. It was never
Mhm.
intended to be government
Right.
education. And so your movement of homeschool is really empowering parents as the first educators because parents do have the right and responsibility to decide the upbringing of their children. And
Right.
it's just beautiful that you are partnering with parents. I love saying that as a Christian, I love the fact that we do have these rights in our faith and that it's important, in my opinion, to ground children in God, because when we talk about our inalienable rights that come from
Mhm.
our Creator, children need to understand our rights don't come from the government.
Right.
They come from God. They're born with these rights. And I don't know
Right.
how you separate the two, although I do believe in freedom of religion. But I also say, if we raise children who don't really understand that our rights are given to us by the Creator, then we might open ourselves up to some of these other countries that have different laws like Sharia law or communism or socialism, that
Yeah.
are void of that acknowledgement of God. I mean, I'm not going to put
Well,
any words in your mouth, Kashia, but what do you think about that?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it's a question of jurisdiction and where it comes from. And I love that we're celebrating America's 250th anniversary birthday, because that was founded on this idea of independence. And that independence comes with responsibility. We're free and we need to defend the freedom, but the responsibility of taking accountability, I think, is the word that I want to say. It's accountability for our own choices and our own actions, and responsibility for ourselves instead of becoming, unfortunately, I hate the word and the phrase, but it just says it so well, the welfare mentality, like what I'm owed, or, this entitlement attitude. So I think homeschooling is the ultimate independent state. It is that ultimate taking authority for the parents that God has given you. Totally. It gives me hope for our nation. It really does. I look at these homeschool families and I see not only are they testing better on standardized tests, which we could argue whether or not that matters, but I see them being independent thinkers. I see them being the leaders, whether it's in politics or their jobs or in their neighborhood. They're starting to be a difference and be set apart. And I love that. So, yeah, I mean, let freedom ring.
If you're just tuning in, my special guest today is Kashia Davis. She is the outreach director of Christian Home Educators of Colorado. And we're talking about a very special event that's happening this Thursday, April 9th at the Colorado State Capitol. It's
Yes.
Homeschool Day. And you touched on it at the beginning about what the day looks like. But 11 o'clock is the big front-facing ceremony. How early would you like to see parents show up at the Capitol?
Well, I would say by 8:30 you should be fine to get in. The session's open at 9, and that's when we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. We have activities starting about 8 o'clock. It's so fantastic. On Even if you're not homeschooling, you should just come and be impressed by the youth of our state, because we will have a choir there singing, and they fill the halls. The echo in the chamber is just amazing. As they're just opening and greeting people coming in, we'll be setting up our activity tables that don't start until 9. So I think 8:30 is a good time. Another thing to note that I want families to know is I hear a lot of objections about coming to downtown because it doesn't feel safe to them. But we do have off-duty police officers that we have hired to make sure that they're roaming and going back and forth between the surrounding parking so that you do feel comfortable. We're
Mhm.
going to be, and there's also safety in numbers. There's going to be a lot of us, we hope.
Yeah, I was down at the Capitol for School Choice Day, and I know there were some of those concerns, but it was fine. It was great. It
Yeah.
was very safe, and it was a joyous event. And so I'm glad that you brought that up as a reminder. Like, just come on. There's a lot of people that are going to make sure that your children and your families are
Yeah.
safe. So
And a lot
great.
of people are surprised that haven't come that there's even security to get into the building. So
Mm.
you're going to be fine. And of course, we're doing this in the middle of the day as well.
That is beautiful. So, what is the purpose behind Homeschool Day? Tell us about that.
The purpose is to let the legislators see who they represent, who we represent when we're talking to them, and also to give the families an opportunity to meet them. There are homeschoolers in every one of our districts. Every single legislator and House of Representative has a homeschool family that they have a chance to see face to face. So on our registration, we have a link to help people schedule an appointment to meet with their legislature. So we absolutely want to facilitate that. But again, just being seen and letting them know, hey, we're normal people. Sometimes we have a tendency of, I don't know, characterizing things that we don't know. Like people might think this is what a homeschooler is. Oh, they're the weird ones in the corner. And that's not the case. But in general, we're just regular families that love our kids and are trying to do what we think is best for them. And the data is proving that we are doing it. So this is a great testimony day. It's a good day for them to see amazing stories and to increase that personal bandwidth with our legislatures, regardless of what side of the line they're on, right?
Mhm, mhm. It seems like, though, when you think about the role of government, the proper role of government, that these homeschool parents are actually normal. Like, they're doing what the original
Right.
intention was to be.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be more normal to follow the
Well,
God-given design of
I would love that to
educating?
be normal. And that's why it's so important that we have that
Mhm,
because freedoms are being, and the homeschool world in Colorado hasn't really been attacked, but we're seeing nationally there's a movement to really try to overreach and control and regulate homeschooling more and more. And parents are more and more being treated as guilty until proven innocent.
mhm.
You know, they're asking for families to prove themselves instead of the opposite mentality. So we don't have that problem yet, but we're not ignorant of what's happening nationally. This is super, super important for families to just remain vigilant. It seems like, ugh, do we have to? But that's the truth about freedom. If we don't defend it, it's going to be taken away from us. I mean, like just a pickpocket in the back door. You don't even realize what freedoms you're giving away when you're not paying attention. So I think it's really important to have families come. And that's a little thing. Like we're the ones who are still doing the lobbying and making sure that we're having conversations and that they know who we are, but you're showing up just to let them see you. That is tremendous.
So, yeah, okay, so let's talk about that. When you show up to the Capitol as homeschool parents who pretty much are saying, "We want the government to stay out of our
Yeah,
lives."
right.
What does that look like when you're talking to a legislator? What are you lobbying for?
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably mostly it. We don't need any gifts. We just want to have our freedoms preserved, right? So we're not looking for funding, which is I think unusual. Most people who come that are lobbying, they are saying, "Hey, will you fund this pet project?" I think we're unusual in that we usually say, "Please no." Because we know, and as an American citizen who pays my taxes, I want that. I want there to be oversight when there's dollars being spent on our behalf. So we know that, and we don't want that oversight. So we've proven ourselves. Our this, like I said, our test scores are higher. The children, even though socialization is still a common objection, it's been proven that that's not the case, that they're very capable. There are even studies that show that homeschool adults, children who were homeschooled and are now adults, are happier in life. I don't know how you quantify that, but my point is there's a resounding A plus to homeschooling. It's been proven to do really, really well. So
Well, I
kind of
think
lost my track on the question there.
no, but that's beautiful. I think like inherently in homeschooling is a stronger family unit, which is
Yeah.
really the foundation of what we're seeing when we talk about healthy
Hmm.
children, mentally healthy, socially healthy children. When you have a mom and a dad who are committed to the upbringing of their children, you start out
Yeah.
better, I think, as a child because you have that infrastructure versus where we're seeing broken families or absent fathers, especially absent fathers, where the stress is on the mom to help work all these
Yeah.
jobs and things like that.
Culturally, yeah, it's making an impact on our culture to see families falling apart. And I do think the family strength is going to make the biggest impact on our culture for sure. But also, we still see largely single moms homeschooling, single fathers as well. But yeah, anybody can homeschool. So it doesn't mean you have the family unit intact. But I do think that that's the foundation, that the family would be strengthened. And that's where our dependence comes on, is on family and extended family and on one another instead of on the government. So when we're having, that was the question that you asked me, when we're having the conversations with our legislators, I'm generally, we want our families to say, hey, I'm praying for you. We don't need to be combative. In fact, I am thankful that we have people who are willing to serve our state. And I do pray for them, regardless of where they believe. And I do want them to know what's important to us. And I do want them to understand that we not only, at least from my perspective as a Christian, not only do we want the freedom to homeschool, but we want the freedom to live our life according to our faith. And that needs to be super protected because it's being
Yeah.
eroded.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a couple of bills down at the Capitol that are targeted towards homeschoolers. No matter where you fall on the spectrum of the homeschool enrichment dollars, the fact that there's a bill in the legislature that could
Mhm.
potentially reduce that money for parents to access extracurricular activities, that's concerning to me.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other one is with the ACE scholarships with President Trump's big, beautiful bill, the $1,700 education tax credits. There's a new bill that
Mhm.
is targeted towards, our population of saying, hey, if you don't comply with the state laws, then we can prevent you from accessing those scholarship
Yeah.
dollars for, again, extracurricular activities or activities where parents decide they want to, help support their children in these types of enrichment programs. So I think it's really timely that
Mhm.
you as a community are going to the Capitol to say, wait a minute, you know, we want hands off of our choice as parents on how we educate our
Yeah.
children and allow us the option to say, if I want my child to take horseback riding or cooking or some sort of extra classes based on private scholarship dollars. I mean, that's what gets me. And these are
Yeah.
federal dollars. They're not even
Listen,
state dollars.
but this is why our we beat to the drum of we're always advocating for independence. We're always advocating for parental control and private funded because we know with the government funds come the government regulations. And so it is very concerning. I do think it's hilarious. The government program that they're targeting, the homeschool enrichment program, is less than 1% of the school budget. So it's a really microscopic part in comparison to the whole, but it's not surprising because when you have the government funding things, the government has the really authority and, from my perspective, again, I said this, responsibility of managing it. So there is a little bit of that, but you're right. The overreach is crazy. The private funds, like you said, the ACE scholarships and the big beautiful bill, that there immediately are going to be regulations. And that was what I heard from a lot of the skeptics. Like, well, when is that going to come? Well, who knows when? Well, it hasn't even been instituted yet, and they're trying to regulate it. This is why if you don't become dependent, if you remain independent, you're much more protected
Mm-hmm.
so that you're not hooked on these things and you don't become dependent on this, that, or the other. So, and that really is what we try to do at our website, check.org, is all private funded. Everything that we do is just the private ones. They're Christian organizations too, but you can find all kinds of alternatives. And the funding that they use is significantly less, like probably about 10% is what the average homeschool family uses versus what the government programs cost, which just tells you so much about independence and how when we take control, how much power we have. So we can do it. And I already said it. I think homeschooling gives me hope. It is the original like independent movement. And what better way to celebrate the 250th anniversary than to really lean into that and take responsibility for the things that God had meant us to take responsibility for.
So I'm going to say it again, Thursday, April 9th. Come
Come
down
join
to the
us.
Capitol, get there early, find some parking, 8 o'clock. You might have to pay for parking, or you could Uber or take the train. There's different ways to get downtown. And then what time do you anticipate the events will be finished?
So after our rally from 11 to about 11:45, we'll do the rally on the steps. Then we're going to go over to the Knights of the Columbus building. It's a block and a half north of the Capitol. And that is an optional item. People don't have to do it. We have catered lunch for people who picked up that option, or you could bring your lunch. And we have a class by our guest speaker, Alex Newman. That should conclude, though, by about 1 o'clock. So everybody will be free to go about other things. We've suggested some other field trips downtown. There's the Molly Brown House, there's the Denver Mint. There's obviously, you could do more at the Capitol than what we have. So there's a lot of opportunity for just that area that you can make a day of it if you want, or you could head home just after lunch.
So talking about the Molly Brown House, I interviewed someone from the Heritage Foundation. They're doing their America 250 type of tour where you can look at the map and you can go there, and all of these historical sites are graded.
I love that.
Have you heard about this?
To that. I listened to your interview and it was shocking to me, but also how truthful that you cannot trust what you're reading everywhere. It's so it's disturbing, really. But did she ever tell you what she thought about the Molly Brown House? I know at that point they hadn't yet.
Not specifically, but it's the only Colorado location because most of the historical places are East Coast, along
Sure,
the East
right.
Coast. No, but every state is supposed to have a historical site, but that's ours. And so, yes, go to the Molly Brown House. I think it's super cool. It's fun.
Yeah.
To feel like you go back in time. Tell us about Alex, your guest speaker.
Yeah, Alex Newman is from the Centennial Institute, and he is a reporter, but well known in the homeschool and education world. He's written, I think, 8 books. I mean, written quite a lot of books. Very prolific writer, and obviously a journalist. He's also done a few movies. So he mostly talks about education independence. He talks about homeschooling. He's got history of being in, I think it's Switzerland, when homeschooling was made to be against the law. So he has that narrative that he just talks about what slow fade to give away those freedoms look like. Granted, in another country, but his perspective is amazing. Just talking about staying vigilant and defending those freedoms that we don't realize are being taken away from us little by little.
It seems like there's been this big push for homeschooling. Obviously, we know since the pandemic, we're seeing more and more
Yeah.
parents pull their kids out of public schools and dispersing them into different options other than the public school. But what kind of growth have you seen specifically in the homeschool environment?
Crazy. Oh, yeah, a tremendous amount of growth. I mean, I think after COVID, during COVID, almost everybody said they were homeschooling. They were doing school at home. But even after that original just doing public school virtually, there was a big, giant shift, more than double. And a lot of people expected that to drop off. And there was a little bit of a dip, but the growth still continues. In fact, homeschooling is still the fastest growth of all forms of education nationally and in Colorado. So there still is this huge surge towards it. In fact, I think CDE just recently, maybe in January, released a report that last year they lost 10,000 students again from public school. And they're going, not all of them, obviously, but largely they're joining us in homeschooling. It's much more cost effective than a private education. It's so much more flexible. You can think outside of the box. I mean, there's countless reasons. So still very popular.
what is your encouragement? Because we talked about this in the last show, the misconceptions or maybe the fear that
Yeah.
parents have. But what's your advice for parents who haven't quite made the switch but are thinking about it?
I think you can do it. If you are feeling called to do it, do it. Everybody is afraid. And we have a podcast as well, and I interviewed a guest and he gave this tip and I was like, that is so true. He said it's human nature to feel insecure about something that you're not good at. And how do you get good at it? So you just keep doing it. So there's 1,000 different methods. There's different methodologies on how you teach. There's different curriculums. There's different programs you can get plugged into. And it's just about finding the right combination that suits your family. And that's really where we come in. We kind of guide you in that. So give yourself the time to get better at it. You might start terribly. You might start feeling frustrated, but I just have never met a homeschool family that has gone all the way through and they've graduated their kids and said, man, I regretted that choice. Never. But I have talked to families who've regretted not homeschooling. So I don't think you'll regret the choice. It is difficult. I've said that before. It's not an easy choice, but it's so worthwhile and so life-giving. And also it impacts so much more than just your family. It really does impact our culture. So I obviously am an advocate for homeschooling.
Kashia, I always say for every problem, there's a solution. And perhaps if you're a parent who doesn't feel confident in themselves, perhaps they can find another mom or another family to start out with, perhaps just one other family, like a micro school, and dip your pinky toe in and say, how about I've heard of this where some parents say, well, I'll teach one day, or I'll teach these subjects. I know these subjects really well. And then you take the kids and you teach this subject with them, and they do it together where they support each other. Are you seeing some of that model as well?
Absolutely, yes. We call them co-ops. Yes, so we would get together. I was the science nerd. I always wanted to do the science experiments. And then I had friends who were artistic. Don't ask me to draw a stick figure, but they could do the color theory and all the other additional things. So yeah, we get together in community. And I feel like to be successful in homeschooling, you need to start with your why, write it down and know what you're doing. It becomes your filter because there's so many options. And then the second thing you need to do is find your community. And that might be a co-op, that might be a support group, it might be an enrichment program, but those are going to be the people that encourage you in what you want to do. And if you find those two things, it's a sweet spot and you can absolutely do it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Find your tribe, because you might might need a sick day, and then you're like, what are you gonna do? I'll go call my girlfriend. I love that. And every time I meet a homeschool parent, they are amazing and lovely and hardworking. Cause it is, I'm a teacher, right? I mean, it's hard being a teacher, but it's hard when it's you all the time and your child is relying on you. So great job to all of the parents who are homeschooling. List your website again where people can go and get more information on the homeschool day.
It's check.org, check without the K. So CHEC, Christian Home Educators of Colorado. And if you want to go directly to our website, it's to the event, it's check.org/DAC for Day at the Capitol. Yes, we hope that you will be there. Thank you so much.
Yes. And we want media to be there, take lots of pictures, lots of videos, blow it up, go on social media, talk about it. Let's build some excitement for Homeschool Day. And Kashia, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Such a strong advocate for homeschool parents. You are a rock star. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in. Catch me next time. And remember, educating the mind without the heart is no education. So seek wisdom, cultivate virtue, and speak truth.
Thanks for tuning in to Restoring Education in America with Priscilla Rahn. Visit PriscillaRahn.com to connect or learn how you can sponsor future episodes to keep this message of faith, freedom, and education on the air.